Even though he said to me, I was still stunned.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out to our community meeting on developing our homeless plan. This is a televised meeting. I would like to remind everybody that we are live on YouTube. And at this time, we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Forrest Wilkins is going to lead us in the pledge.
Place your right hand over your heart. Follow me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to do a roll call. Mayor Mike Spence, Mayor Pro Tem Lloyd Johnson, Councilmember James Tuma, Councilmember Corey Warshaw, Councilman Tony Wu. I would like to reflect that we do have a quorum. We have 3 councilmen in attendance tonight.
Yeah, I'm Mike Spence, I'm the mayor, but if James Toma and Corey Warshaw can stand so you can see who they are, they're here as well. And feel free to grab them and shake them, do whatever you want to do. What I want to do is welcome you to this and explain a little bit about it real quick. Is that, because I think there's been some confusion, and different things have been said, all that kind of stuff. But obviously, homelessness is a bigger problem than it used to be in the city of West Covina. When I was born here, I grew up here, and there were always, at some point, homeless people that were in the parks and stuff, but nothing to this degree. And of course, if you read the newspapers, it's something that's happening in cities throughout California. So it's not something unique to us. You guys, or the voters, approved a sales tax increase in West Covina, the entire county, for the next 10 years to deal with the issues of homelessness. Usually when a county initiative has money involved in it, cities receive part of it. That was not the case with Measure H. We received 0. They get everything. And they have lots of plans. They're going to hire 600 employees and all kinds of different things. But one of the things they did was they allocated $50,000 to the city to go through the process of developing a grant proposal to ask them to shake loose some of that money. And so that's what this is. And we have to hire a consultant, and we're doing it with COG, all this stuff we're jumping through all their hoops in order to try to participate and get some of those funds for our homeless program, or homeless activities or programs here in West Covina. Just so you know, the council has done something. We hired 2 additional officers on our bike patrol. They go for parks, and they're trained also in mental health and the resources that are available. Our police participate with mental health task force in dealing with individuals that may have those difficulties. And of course, we just are bringing up our ordinances up to date to comply with state law and state court decisions about how we deal with property that is left in the parks. There's a lot of court cases, a lot of laws and regulations around this. It's not as easy as people say, just give them a ticket to another city. That's not how it works. That's illegal. And so there's lots of things that, that we're trying to do. And with that, Nicole Bresciani is the assistant city manager, and she's going to introduce the consultants. And then, again, a reminder, you're on YouTube, which means whatever you say, you can become viral. And whatever you say can be used against you. Everyone will see it. Your grandkids will see it, all that stuff. So just remember that. Anyways, Nicole?
Thank you, Mayor Spence, and thank you all again for coming out tonight. I know this is a sensitive subject. I would just like to ask everybody to be sensitive with the language that we use when describing people who are experiencing homelessness. Not all homeless people are criminals. Not all activity that takes place in our businesses and our parks and in our public rights of way are because of homeless people. People who are experiencing homelessness have a variety of issues, including cost of living, including mental health, substance abuse, and affordable housing. So at this time, I would like to introduce our consultant, Lasar, and we have Rachel, who is the lead. We would like to say congratulations to Brian, who's actually our lead consultant. He and his wife had a baby last night, so very big news. So thank you, and I will turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you all for coming. This is a wonderful turnout, and I'm really excited to, I am actually here primarily to listen. What we'll do tonight is go over a brief background on homelessness, just kind of so we're all on the same page in terms of the lingo, and then also some of the best practices. Before talking briefly a little bit more about the homelessness planning process, and then really I want to spend the bulk of the meeting getting your feedback on significant issues and concerns related to homelessness, whether you're a business owner, resident, if you're engaged maybe with the faith-based communities or already active as a homelessness service provider or a staff member with the city or the county. I'd like to get all of your feedback. And my colleague Dan will be taking notes, and also we'll get some of those challenges and concerns up on the board here when we get to that section. Then I'm going to make you work a little bit. We're going to try and identify some potential strategies, some things that you think would be good approaches. And we'll take a really broad general approach. We don't have time to get very specific, but getting your ideas in terms of those strategies is really going to go a long way as we incorporate stakeholder feedback into the plan. Before I get started, though, I did want to reiterate something that the mayor said, which is, I mean, you guys are already doing a lot. I'm impressed. You know, from 2016 to 2017, your homelessness count went from 48 to 158 homeless people in your city on any given night. You are not alone. Almost every city has seen at least a twofold increase. We know this is a serious issue. We know that affordable housing, increasing, rental rates in a highly competitive market with stagnant wages, which we'll talk about down the line, are a huge contributor to that. But also, we know that we need to see what resources we have to be more efficient in terms of the way we partner with other organizations, the way we partner within organizations in the city, as well as with the county, as well as with your neighbors, your city neighbors, and the SPA in general. But yeah, I did also want to bring up a couple of things. So right about the time that the Homelessness Initiative and Measure H strategies were being developed, your city leadership, your mayor and your council took the initiative to pass an ordinance about 5 different strategies that they were really willing to take on and initiate in the community. And so we'll definitely honor those and look at some of those topics. And what those included were homelessness prevention services for families, excuse me, subsidized housing for individuals with disabilities, rapid rehousing, which is a way that you get someone who's experiencing homelessness quickly rehoused with some short-term rental subsidies. That is actually one of a very limited number, as the mayor also noted, of potential funding linkages directly with Measure H to cities, but we'll talk about that a little bit down the line. Also first responders training to get everyone kind of to the best practices for outreach and get them trained to know what to do when they encounter certain types of individuals and how to link them up with services. And also finally, the 5th strategy was to look at ways to regionally coordinate better for public housing authority services. So that I thought was a really impressive and very progressive step that your city took. Also, your city allocated $50,000 of housing funds toward rapid rehousing, and also $50,000 to local homelessness service providers here. So I am impressed, and let's see tonight maybe how we can expand some of those activities to serve those populations of greatest need. So first, why are people homeless? Raise your hand. Just shout out, why are people homeless?
Loss of employment.
Lack of family support.
Okay. Yeah?
Can you repeat them since we're live?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So loss of job, lack of family support.
Mental illness.
Mental illness.
Alcohol.
Drugs and alcohol. Anything else? I'm sorry?
Bad luck.
There you go, bad luck. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes folks just want to be homeless.
Some people want to live outdoors. Yeah. Anything else?
Rent increases.
Rent increases, sure, yeah, yeah.
Some people make more money on homeless than they do when they live in a house.
Oh, interesting, yeah, okay. Anything else? Yeah,
Medical debt.
I hear that, yeah, sure. Repeat it. Oh, I'm sorry, medical debt. All right, well, you are all right. There are many, many reasons why people are homeless. What's really interesting about homelessness is the homelessness safety net is really designed to catch the failings of other systems. Right? So the homelessness safety net is not created from anything but a way to catch people who've fallen out of various other things. So there's a variety of solutions that are potential for different populations. People become homeless for all sorts of reasons. But ultimately, what's interesting, most addicts are housed, most criminals are housed, people experiencing unemployment, lack of family support, but most people remain housed. In the 80s, what we found is that that's when affordable housing really started to decline. And so now we have this lack of housing. And so ultimately, ending homelessness means providing homes for these people. Not just homes, though. So, just kind of a little 101 here, like we were talking about before. Some of the causes: loss of affordable housing, rapid income inequality. There's a strong correlation between cities where there's a huge income gap, and that's because it increases competitiveness in the rental and the home buyer market. But then also like closing of institutions. So the psych institutions back in the 1980s, as well as others, but it was a great idea. Deinstitutionalization is not necessarily a bad thing, but the state did not plan for where to house those people. So we switched from institutions to a residential living situations, but we didn't build that housing for them. So that definitely created a large uptick in what we think of as the mentally ill homeless populations that really started to emerge in the 80s. And then of course, wages are not increasing at the same rate as housing prices, and public assistance is pretty much stagnant, if not declining. So in the 80s, when that first started, we really saw that as something we need to triage. It was an emergency, like an earthquake or a flood. So we erected cots and tents, and we fed people, and we wished them the best on their journey to find a job and a home. Okay, we did our best. In the 90s, people started to realize that it made a lot of sense to address the individual issues of a person. That's really when we started looking at homelessness as being caused for various reasons for different people, right? And so looking at different ways to target services on an individual basis, an individual treatment plan, if you will. But that still wasn't enough, because what we were finding is we were telling people that they needed to jump through all these hoops, in addition to the fact that they already lived under a bridge, probably developed addiction if they didn't have it already from being homeless, and how stressful that could be. And we're telling them they need to get up, get out of the shelter, take a shower at 5 a.m., go work all day, come back, try and get their benefits assistance, their every other service that they need to have. It's pretty exhausting even for someone who is fully functioning. So the approach switched to putting them in housing as soon as possible and wrapping the services around them as they were willing to accept them. It's called the housing first approach, but that's what I was starting to say a little bit earlier, is it's housing first is the philosophy, but it's not housing only. So for each person who is housed in an ideal situation, which is the best practices around homelessness, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you're individually tailoring services to them to keep them in that housing and to help them stabilize. But of course, housing is not cheap to build. It's a huge issue everywhere. Cities don't have the money to just build a bunch of affordable housing. So we have to really, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. But if you think about it, everyone that you probably know someone who is struggling with their rent. And I'm a working professional, I have a PhD, and I still pay 50% of my income in rent. So I think it affects us all. But let's see how many optimists we have in the room. Can homelessness be ended? Raise your hand if yes. Come on. Only 6? This gentleman is 100% correct. In Utah, I believe they ended veteran homelessness, and they're working on family.
In Utah? None.
Zero?
Zero.
I thought it was just veterans.
Zero.
Well, go Utah. I'm calling them tomorrow.
How about
I
that?
have a link.
Yes. Okay, do I really only have 6 optimists in the room? Really? 7? 7. All right. How many people think that homelessness cannot be ended? Okay. And we have some in the middle there. All right. We'll get you there. Okay. You're all right. Because we're saying yes with a caveat, right? We're saying it depends on how you define ended. And this is where all the work really begins, because this is a system-wide effort. This is a community-wide effort. This is a nationwide effort. This involves the collaboration of cities, counties, nonprofit service providers, business people, faith-based community, residents, pretty much everyone under the sun needs to help to make homelessness rare. Okay, so it happens to very few people because we have good prevention strategies in place. We want it to be brief because we have a good safety net that catches people and pushes them back up into housing with the services that address the issues that made them have that brief stint of homelessness. And we want it to be non-recurring. So we want that person to stabilize based on the services we provide in housing so that they don't lose it again. Can we all agree on that? Cool. Okay, and why should we end it? Homelessness is fundamentally unacceptable. I don't think any of us like looking at it. I don't think any of us are like, yeah, homelessness, I love it, right? No matter what you think of homeless folks, I don't think any of us like seeing it, okay? Additionally, I think everyone has a right to safe and stable housing. Unfortunately, safe and stable housing these days is very, very expensive, and we can't foot the bill alone as taxpayers. But most importantly, homelessness is expensive, and it's a drain on resources. What's interesting about a lot of the most kind of the loud squeaky wheels, you know, people with kind of dual diagnoses, so addiction and mental health issues, they actually end up spending a lot of time in our most expensive housing, at least from a taxpayer perspective. Do you guys know what that is? Hospitals and jails, there we go. So ultimately it will be a cheaper option for those people, but I do realize that some people struggle with the idea that those people deserve a house more so than someone else. But we'll get there. It's a discussion, it's an education process. Okay, so to make all that happen, what do we need? We need the belief it can be done. And I'm looking over here, and there is not a dot over Utah, which I think is just a crime. But we do have, this is just an example graphic here, 30 different states have ended veteran homelessness, and that is due to a really large push at the federal level, a lot of community support to help veterans, which is wonderful, and then some availability in terms of resource coordination with state and other localities to make that happen for veterans. And it's working, and we can use some of those same models to address other populations, those who are at risk of homelessness, families, transition age youth, you know, 18 to 24-year-olds who are exiting foster care, don't really have that stability to be able to launch out on their own for the first time, and a lot of them fall into homelessness. These are just kind of a small subset of populations that we can really work to deliver a similar model as with veterans, as well as people who are chronically homeless, the loudest squeaky wheels, I should say, with dual diagnoses. They can also benefit from these models. Leadership and buy-in. You see that one little duck flying away? Yank him back in line. Make sure that we're all doing this together. And then a well-oiled system. So this is where we look at, you know, the way that the city homelessness plan here is working is that we're working with the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments on some regional coordination. We're looking at sub-regional partnerships, like I said, with your neighboring cities, also with the county. I believe Leticia is here somewhere from the county. There she is in the back. She can answer any specific questions about the Homelessness Initiative or Measure H if you have them. And trying to figure out ways that we can spread those resources, leverage them, and reduce duplication. That happens a lot where someone will access services at different points in the same city. There will be multiple calls for the same person in a city, so different departments go out, say public safety, or the sheriff's department, or the city's parks and rec, and then that's extra time, that's a resource strain, looking at ways we can make things more efficient. Okay, and then of course sufficient housing and services, which doesn't just apply to your city, but I think every city knows that with economic growth comes a need for additional housing, and that maybe we can set some of those units aside to help stabilize homeless folks or prevent homelessness for those who are the most vulnerable. I'm almost done talking at you. In terms of the planning process, what we're doing right now, we're obviously right here in the very beginning. So tonight is one of the first big opportunities to get some feedback from you in terms of your concerns. There'll be a few more kind of input sessions, and then we'll start drafting the plan with goals, strategies, and then identify specific actions. But this isn't a plan that we want to sit on the shelf. This is a plan we want to be pragmatic and implementable immediately, so that those Measure H and Homelessness Initiative dollars that we can get, that you guys are prepared for it, that you know what your resources are, you know exactly the types of funding sources you're willing to pursue, your community has, there's support and buy-in behind that. And part of that too, as we're developing the plan, is we don't want to just draft a bunch of strategies without talking to you, because you then would have legitimate reasons to push back. There could be certain strategies that just don't work. They, it's not something that the community can get behind. We want to hear some of those concerns tonight, and then look at ways that we can really make it work in your city. Okay, and then we'll draft the plan, take that to City Council for feedback, discussion, and comments, and finalize the plan. The plan is due June 30th to the county, which seems like a pretty tight time frame. I think all of us agree it's a really tight time frame. But here's the thing with these plans. This is a jumping off point. So the county, this is really the first time I think that they have realized that they need the cities as partners. And so this is a jumping off point. The county specifically said these plans are flexible, they're malleable, they can be updated. You are not required to achieve every metric that you set out, but this is an idea of figuring out what you can do, what you think you can do, and then you can adapt that over time. So I would like to put that out there when we think about being a little bit more ambitious, thinking outside the box. You're not locked into doing something that would fail. Okay, this is something that can be an ongoing draft. The plan is 3 years long, this first one, which is the length of time that the Measure H dollars, the strategies attached to them have been approved. There's 10 years of funding, right, with Measure H that the voters approved, but only 3 years of that have been programmed in terms of the way that money comes down. And as the mayor noted, there's not a lot of direct city funding that's accessible through the plan. But I think what we'll see over time is that whatever is working with the city and county partnerships and those funding sources, that maybe those can be adjusted so that the money's flowing in the most efficient way possible. So we don't know what that's going to be yet, but I'm just saying there's a lot of flexibility in this. And so I'd like to encourage you to be ambitious in your thinking, and kind of push the envelope when you're thinking about things that might work, because over time, those things very well might be implementable. And without further ado, I'd like to open it up to you and really give you a chance to talk about the significant issues and concerns you have. And if you wouldn't mind, when you do speak, if you could let me know kind of the context. If you're a business owner, if you're a resident, if you're a service provider, whatever your relationship is in terms of how you're affected by homelessness, would be great if you could clarify that. So, who wants to go first? No pressure.
I'll go first.
All right.
Oh,
Great.
My name is Forrest Wilkins. My wife and I have been residents of West Covina for 45 years. I'm a retired Los Angeles policeman, 18 years. I still have some contact with on-duty Los Angeles policemen. They have personally told me that the city council and the mayor of Los Angeles said, leave the homeless alone. Now, if you go downtown, you'll see tents on the sidewalk. Recently, I was downtown there. There's an individual in a wheelchair. Couldn't go down the sidewalk, had to go in the gutter, possibly getting hit by a car. So my first comment is, where's the police here tonight? We got some police back here, or just firemen? Police, are you the Hope team? Good. Good to see some input from them. My first comment is, who are in daily contact with the homeless? It's the police. Police are very good at solving problems. When we have a problem, whether it's a burglary, a robbery, or whatever, what do? We call the police. Police are in the habit of solving people's problems. We ought to get input from the Hope team. We ought to get input from the chief of police. We ought to get input probably from the management. They might have some management people that are working on their master's or PhD. Get some input from the police. What do you recommend? So first of all, we have to enforce the laws. Second of all, yes, there are a lot of social issues that we need to be addressed. You've covered a lot of them. But I think that should be listed up there. Get the police fully involved.
Just to clarify, so when you say fully involved, do you mean fully engaged with the outreach process? I just want to make sure we capture it. Okay.
Get some input from them. How do they address it? You know,
Okay.
and we should address the lawbreakers.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
what would you do if you had a homeless on your front lawn tomorrow morning?
It's not funny.
No, it happens.
It's
They're sitting
I'm,
in front.
I'm laughing because I realize that it is something that happens, and what do you do? Right.
And he's right there.
And I just want to remind everybody that we need to, whoever has the mic, we need to make sure we're getting everything captured on YouTube.
Yeah, I think that's a significant concern, yeah, law breaking. And on private property too, it's you know, it's different than public property. An interesting thing that I know the county is actually rolling out right now is a toolkit for people to reference on how to deal with specific issues. And again, we can look at some of those in terms of public education in the community as well. I think that'd be helpful. People feel a little helpless sometimes.
Hi, my name is Tony Guerrero. I live right here by the mall, West Covina, and I have grandchildren. Right by the wash, you'll see, we know we got it gated for the wash. However, there's a lot of homeless that sleep right there in the park, screaming, yelling, and we have called the police a number of times because the way these women are screaming, you'd think they were being hurt. So, you know, it is imperative that we do get the police involved. We do call them. However, I'm scared when I even go just to the store because they hang out there. I walk with a cane, and they walk by me really fast and asking me for money, and there's no guards. They see them, they walk away.
Safety concerns.
The safety
Yeah.
concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm William Williams. I've lived here since 1975. I've seen the city change dramatically, especially the southern part of the city, which doesn't get its fair share of services. What I've noticed is the business community here doesn't know what to do. They've even told me that when they do call the police, the city and the police both tell them there's nothing they can do. So you need to engage the business community with the police regarding what you intend to do with a plan. I was over at the dollar store by Social Security 2 days ago, and the cashier told me, oh yeah, they come in here all the time, tear up the store, we don't know what to do, we call the police, nothing can be done. That's the answer they get. So there is no plan right now, and I applaud you for trying to build a plan, but you have to do it with the business community and with the police.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Hi, my name is Laura Vieira. I'm probably a 30-year resident of West Covina, and I have kind of a different take. I think that you're right, the police are obviously going to be a huge advocate for this matter, but I think us as individuals, we also have a lot of room to provide support to homeless and those experiencing homeless. My first experience was, I guess probably about 4 years ago, a young man was, I used to live over off of Shadeville, and there's an alley behind my home, and there was a young man who was 19 years old living in the alley, and he was experiencing homelessness because of the foster care system, aging out, and didn't know what was available to him. And one of my little neighbors came and got me and told me about it, because I kind of am the fix-all in the neighborhood, I guess. And I went and checked in with this young man, and within 2 months' time, I had him living in my home. He was an orphan, and we were able to get him some services that he needed from Los Angeles County, from the foster care system, which he aged out of at a certain age anyways. But now he's successful. He's working for Federal Express, and we're very, very proud of him. He's become like a son to us. On the other hand, I also have befriended many of the homeless in our community because this was kind of an inspiration to me. My young man's name is Ernesto, and he graduated West Covina High School. I befriended many of the homeless, some of the chronic homeless in our community, and was very taken how most of them, if you sit down and talk, they all have a story. There's maybe a lack of family support, some mental illness. Yes, of course, there's drug and alcohol addiction. Of course, there are many different reasons. But I befriended a man who most of you might know. His name's Robbie Nicodemus. He walks around with a little white dog, the cutest dog you've ever seen. And the dog is what made me initially talk to him. And I learned that he is mentally ill and probably was his whole life, but his grandmother passed, and he moved to California because he did not have any room to live in Indiana anymore. There was it was too cold, and he came to California thinking he had a stepbrother here. He's been homeless on our streets for about 10 years. And Robbie and I have become friends. He showers at my home weekly. And he actually ended up sleeping in my garage for about 9 months. And my neighbors were all very, very nice about it, and Robbie's chose to go back to the streets. He's comfortable there. He's chronic homeless. And Bob McKinnon from East San Gabriel Valley Coalition for the Homeless is here, and he told me that would happen. You were right. But I just think there's more that can be done if we all step in and maybe do a little more for our fellow man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
My name is Mike Cannell, and I've lived in and around Covina for the last 30 years. And you wanted some solutions.
Yes, please.
What I see and hear, and they tried to clean up in Orange County, the riverbed. 90% of the people they offered beds to refused. They didn't want to be, they want to be homeless. Now, everything that you've said tonight that I've listened to is all good, and it'll take 10 years or more to make an impact. But immediately you can make an impact by putting everybody together in one area. I know you can't get rid of homeless, but we can confine homeless to a shut down car dealership that's got a big lot. You can round them up and keep them in one area rather than right now they're spread out all over the city in little tiny groups by thousands of them. And there's 100 groups of 10 or 20 or 30 or 3 or 4. And as long as they're able to stay in their little groups in their little area, they're perfectly happy. So we have Sam's Clubs shutting down. We have Sears, buildings that can be put into
some shelter
centers, and or like I said, a car dealership where they can actually have their tents and live outside if they want to. or any parking lot.
Safe parking lots,
And
yeah.
then all the police, all the fire department, all the services that want to help these people can help them in one area, and they're not hurting other people in other neighborhoods in the parks where you can't let your kids go play because you're afraid
Sure,
of homeless people.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, and if they're standing around and asking for money as the cars drive by at the stop sign. So, if we can find them, we can do that immediately.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that is definitely actually already a best practice
And
in
it can help.
some of what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly, with the help thing. Thank you.
In terms of a solution, I'd like to focus on that part. I have had considerable experience being involved with homeless in a variety of ways. And I think there's what I would consider 3 different groups of homeless. And so I'm going to describe what I call the triage model, which is there's a group that are just, I would call it down on their luck. They are functional and capable of working on a consistent basis, capable of taking care of themselves. I personally think that in terms of a system, there should be considerable effort given to helping those folks and getting them back into life. Oftentimes, it's just a matter of not being able to make the rent or not being able to know how to get a decent job. And I think those folks should be differentiated from the other categories that I'm going to describe. Because they, somebody talked about giving them housing in one of the dead stores. That would work for them because they could work it out a community environment. But if they're mixed in with folks that scream and yell all night, it won't work. And my point is that generally the people that are dysfunctional can't live in an environment. If you try to put them in one, they won't stay. They'll just leave. We have had, my wife and I have had personal experience with our own foster daughter who was incapable of living anywhere. She just didn't want to. She stayed with us for a while and then moved on. And we see her periodically. She comes back to see us, but only briefly. She doesn't want to live with us. She doesn't want to live anywhere. And I think a large number of the homeless are in that category. And the way that one slide really disturbed me, where there was a focus on just housing. Well, if it's voluntary, it's not going to work. They'll fail miserably. And I would think that's with the majority of the people that are currently homeless. They will not be confined to any kind of reasonable constraint. So that's why I was talking about the triage, that I separate the ones that can function and give them the focus of the housing, and especially if you can do it cheaply, because you can't do it if it's expensive, you just want the money. In terms of the other, what I've heard to as the other 2 groups, they're mostly kind of dysfunctional. There is mentally ill. I think the state made a gross mistake in just stopping the institutionalization of mentally ill people. I mean, it hasn't, it's just, now they're on the street. What has that accomplished? I don't understand what they were thinking. And they actually have a beautiful facility still available to take care of them. It's called Leonardman Development Center. It's huge. They can provide care for a large number of people, and they just gave it up because they didn't like the idea of institutionalization. So now they're on the street. I just don't understand the thinking. The other group is addiction. Dysfunctional people. Now, I'm not talking about the one that is just starting out the process and might be able to be pulled back. I'm talking about the folks, they're addicted, they're always going to be addicted, there's nothing that can be done with them. A huge number of people are in that category. There really needs to be a program that essentially isolates them. And I think our society currently thinks in terms of, there's 2 categories. There's prison and there's, regular living. I think there should be a category where people that can't function in a regular society, and I'm talking about serious drug addicts now, we give them a facility, and yes, they're supposed to stay there. It's not what we call a prison now. I think it's a different kind of facility, but this deals with their situation, and that's it. And most of these people are dangerous. We don't put them in prison anymore because most of their crime is petty. You know, they hit people, they try to take their money, they try to shake them down, those kinds of things. And yet we've decided, well, we don't want to put those people in regular prison. I understand. Regular prison isn't going to do anything for them anyway. You know, but if there could be some kind of I call it facility, institution, whatever label, where they could be housed, and I do mean large congregate care. I think at least that they could be isolated and not be a danger to themselves and the rest of society. That's essentially the three categories that I outlined. And I think that's pragmatic, and you might, and I especially want to emphasize the ones that are functional, that can get back on their feet. If we concentrate on them, I think we could save a decent number of people and give them a decent life.
I'd say the majority, about 80%. Yeah, that's fully functioning. Thank you.
Bill Robinson, I'm a resident. In preparation for this meeting, I've done a lot of research on the internet. There's a lot of links and there's a lot of information, and I recommend that we form up kind of a Wikipedia type thing, share our links and share our information and collaborate a little bit. I'm concerned about duplication of services, and if Covina and West Covina and Glendora and the cities in the area would collaborate on solving this problem, we probably do less duplication and get farther with this problem than if we work city by city alone. This is a extremely complicated problem, and it's just a matter of political will. In Utah, they pretty much solved the problem. They give away housing to homeless people to get them off the street and get them started. If you find a homeless person in Utah, you'd be very surprised. In California, we pay more taxes than probably any state in the nation. It costs $47,000 a year to house someone in the state prison system. And it'd really be cost effective if we figured out ways. You can commit a crime and be thrown in the state prison and get 3 square meals and dental work and a cot and a place to sleep for years. And we'd all be paying for it. And there are cheaper ways of solving that problem. The police departments they come right up against this problem every day. Other experts that haven't been mentioned yet there are some local 50c3 nonprofits that are expert in the homeless area. I think helpusrise.org is a 501(c)(3). There are others. We should find the experts that have been dealing with this problem for decades and find out what works and what doesn't work. There's a lot of information if you look for it. Also, if we collaborated with the faith-based community, people that know what they're talking about and been dealing with this problem. Most of us in this room we have our opinions and a bit of information, but we need to collaborate with the faith-based community, 501(c)(3)s, other cities, so we don't duplicate services. I'm convinced that there's a cost-effective way to deal with this problem. I think San Diego has see, where is that? Well, yeah. Well, if you just look on the internet, and I'd like to share my links. There was a link, an article that told us how Utah solved that problem. And it's just a matter of political will and working with other cities instead of trying to. Other cities have different facilities that have closed down. If one city is doing one thing and our city is doing something else, that way the region can work together and do more.
Thank you.
And if you share your link with me, we can include that in the minutes.
Great.
Chris Miller. We have an opportunity at BKK landfill where they're talking about putting in a 1,200 horse stable and 200, visa workers. Rather than bringing in 200 visa workers, why don't we take, the Group A that Jim Grivich mentioned, the ones that don't have mental issues, don't have, any drug dependency, and train them to take care of horses, and at the same time, find out where they've failed in life that made them homeless, whether it's financial, not understanding how things work, whether it's education, there's many reasons why people, fall in hard times. It may even be because of divorce and everything collapsing. So, use that as a stepping stool to get back into society and rotate people through.
Workforce development, I like it. Thank you.
And I do want to comment that part of the plan is that our consultant will be reaching out to street-based homeless so that we can get some surveys of why people are homeless.
That was one of my questions. Has West Covina collected any data with the police department on who they encountered?
Yeah, there's a series of service providers, both county connected, and then I think the Hope team. There's Volunteers of America, there's Union Station, there's a lot of service providers, and they each have their own data that the county tracks at the spa level, but we're looking at getting some outreach data more at the city level to help with addressing the plan, yeah.
Why don't we hear from the Hope team? What
Yeah.
comments do they have?
Yeah. Hope team, want to say anything?
I think we have a comment back here and then we'll let you guys chime in.
Great.
My name is Robert Torres, West Covina resident. I won't repeat much of what's been already said, but I agree that we need to address the chronically homeless on a regional level. But in the interim, as far as our city goes, I would like to see a ramped up outreach, street outreach, enforcement, and education. I think that that's something that we could do in the interim to have an immediate impact. As far as the long-term fixes, working with the Council of Governments, with the state and at the federal level, I think are efforts that need to be continued. But as far as the interim, educating the homeless, educating the public, and identifying resources, and also informing the public on how to deal with the homeless, having more of these community workshops, and maybe even having something similar to this with our homeless community. Maybe provide them with a hot meal and then inform them of all the services that are available. Because I think many homeless are blind to the fact that there are resources available that they can help.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Thank you.
Robert gave a great segue about street level enforcement, outreach, and education. That's actually what our Hope team is about. So I'm going to turn it over at this point. I believe Chief Taylor will be making a few comments.
I'm the ones that don't. The regulars.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Taylor, and as Nicole said, I'm the police chief. I'm also a resident, so longtime resident in the city, and believe me, all the concerns that you've expressed tonight, I have those same concerns. This is an issue that, an issue that's come upon most recently. I started here in 1981 as a police officer. We didn't have any homeless issues. We had just a scattering here and there, but not so much. As we've progressed, It just keeps getting worse and worse. And we're not unique. I go to LA County Police Chiefs meeting. Every city in LA County has the same type of issues. Beverly Hills, San Marino, they still have homeless issues. So we're not unique in that respect. And, you know, we're very fortunate that the City Council authorized the police department to hire 2 extra police officers to create the HOPE team, the Homeless Outreach Park Enforcement team, to really start addressing these issues. We're a police department that's very, very understaffed. Resources are tight, but we've had to allocate police officers to this specific problem because it's important. It's important to all of us. It's a quality of life issue for all of us. And as the residents have talked, there's a lot of different reasons people are homeless. And by nature, we're a very compassionate society. We want to help people. And sometimes, maybe to the detriment, that increases it a little bit as we give people money, as we give them food, different things. Businesses oftentimes give them food, give them places to sleep. Sometimes the word gets out, and that helps attract them. But, you know, how do we say no? We're all compassionate. We want to do the right thing. We want to help. We know those dollars help. But, you know, it's just a choice that we all have to make. So what I'd like to do now is introduce Lieutenant Ken Plunkett. Lieutenant Plunkett actually manages our homeless services, and he's going to talk a little bit about what we're doing as a department to help the residents, help all of us out, help the businesses. We want to be good partners with our businesses as well as our residents. That's very important to us. And so I'll turn it over to him, and then any questions after that we'll be glad to answer.
Thanks, Chief. I'm Ken Plunkett, Lieutenant with the Police Department, and I am tasked with managing our homeless services. I was born and raised here in West Covina. My family's been here since 1955, so longtime resident, and we do truly care about the city and hoping to find a solution together on these issues. I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the services that we do have. I think our city's been really progressive when it comes to providing services for homeless individuals. We do, like the Chief mentioned, we have our HOPE team, and you see them, they're in the back there, Anthony and Joe. You'd probably see them riding around on motorcycles. They're out, these guys are tasked with going out and interacting with our homeless population on a daily basis. Not only at the parks, but in our business communities and wherever it calls. The city also has teamed up regionally in a couple different efforts. We have a mental evaluation team, which we partner with the County Mental Health. It's a regional program that circulates through the cities of Covina, Azusa, Glendora, and here. 1 day a week, our day is Wednesdays. We have a mental health evaluation clinician that comes out with one of our officers, and we specifically target mental illness issues. Working in conjunction with that team, we also partner with the team they call SB 82, which is out of LA County Mental Health, and they specifically deal with mental illness and homeless. So when those two are combined, we have specific resources for them. We also have the HALO team, which is the Homeless Assistance Liaison Officer Program. And this again is a regional program where we partner with the cities of Covina, Azusa, and Glendora. And they're specifically an outreach for the homeless. And they're out offering services, partnering with local businesses and service entities in the county, trying to help homeless individuals find the resources they need, medical attention, housing. You know, some of the challenges we face is the homeless have to be willing to take on services. Yes. And that's a big component of what's going on. Our HOPE team, they go out, they have referral cards. We're constantly making referrals. We're constantly offering services. But in the state of California, I think in most states, to drag a person off the street and force them into a treatment program is still considered to be kidnapped. And we can't do that. They have to be willing participants, and if they're willing to go, the county and through Measure H funds, there's tons of programs, housing, medical availability. I mean, there's tons of resources out there. We just have to convince the homeless individuals that they have to accept the program and get into those programs. And that's a big part of our battle. Now, there were some comments about police coming out to calls or whatnot and saying that there's nothing we can do. Okay, we still enforce criminal activity. But I just want to be clear that being homeless isn't criminal. Okay, so the criminal activity we can address. The homelessness aspect is a societal problem that we're a part of this team trying to figure out a solution. So the police can't manage that by themselves. The answer to many of these problems isn't take somebody to jail, isn't give them a ticket. Some of those things, it's a revolving door. You know, you can just think about how is a homeless person supposed to pay for a fine? They go to jail for a couple hours and they come back out. So we're looking at case law, we're looking at, you know, the camping, the overnight camping. You think, well, this guy's camping out here on the street, why don't you just take him to jail and take his stuff out of here? The courts have been very clear on homeless issues, and there's a lot of advocate groups that are out there, rightfully so. You know, overnight camping isn't a crime. We have to actually offer people housing before we can even try to get them to move on their way. And a lot of times it's just about moving them from one location to the next. There's really, sometimes if they don't accept services, there's really no place to put them. And those are the issues that we're working on, is how do we get there? And those are some of the issues that this meeting is great. We'd love to hear the input. We'd love to put together the plan, and hopefully we can get some more money and resources. Our HOPE team is funded now. It's funded through some housing and park funds, but it's limited. So eventually those funds will run out. We're going to have to figure out other ways to finance those efforts, which are extremely important to us in the city. And I hope we can come up with some good solutions. So if you guys have any questions, like the chief said, we'd love to take them if we can. Or
I got a question.
You do?
I do.
Well, can you tell us a joke first? Go ahead, sir. You want to
stand up?
How about the homeless camping out in the park, Cortez Park overnight? Is there some municipal code that addresses that after 10 o'clock the park is closed and so forth? And so if that's the case, then wouldn't there be a arrest involved if they're there?
We do have an overnight ordinance in parks. The issue is, like I said, the courts have said before you can just up and arrest somebody for camping in the park, you have to offer them other alternative housing efforts. So you have to try to find them a place to sleep. It's not, it's not that easy to go pick up their stuff and kick them out of the park. It's really not that easy. And sometimes that's not the right thing to do. So we got to weigh the balance of the spirit of the law, the letter of the law, and in fact the law says that we just can't go and arrest. We got to help them find other housing, and if they elect to get up and move their stuff, moved on, well, they've met the obligation and they're moving somewhere else, and then wherever they land the next day, it'll be another call for that. So it's just kind of moving them from location until we find a permanent solution.
What about the mess that they leave behind if they choose to leave? Because right now, if you go to the bus station on the corner of Belinda and Amar, there is a homeless man there right now with his trash all around the bus. And in the morning at 6 a.m. when you have people getting ready to commute to go to work or go to school, have nowhere to sit because his trash is taking over the bus stop. So what do we do in that situation? Can we go and pick up the trash, or are we picking up his personal property? Will we get in trouble for that? So how do we keep our community clean without violating them as well?
Great, that's a great question. There's many parts to it. I will say just the other night, the city council passed, an ordinance for us to start dealing with some of the property, because the property, like you think, isn't as easy as you would think either. The courts have been very specific about abandoned property. What is abandoned to you? What is abandoned to the courts? What is trash? What is significant to somebody? So at bus stops, those are unique situations because bus stops are open to the public. So everybody, including you and the homeless person, has a right to sit there.
Yeah.
So I understand that there's sometimes people leave trash. you know, we can, you know, there are littering laws, but, you know, sometimes those don't really apply to the situation. I do not personally recommend, and I think the police department, as a police department, we would say we would not encourage you to pick up the trash, although that's a great idea to help each other out. I would encourage you to make a call to the city and request that our city yard people go out there, and we try to get there as fast as we can. The city yard people are I don't want to keep saying understaffed, but they have to go everywhere. They gotta be trained to deal with hazmat, because some of the stuff that they're dealing with is hazmat. It's not safe, and we all have to decipher now what constitutes property that we have to seize as evidence and take to the police station to hold, or what constitutes trash that we can actually throw away. So it's a problem that we are working on.
So my issue is we live in that general area where most of the homelessness is. We're right there by the Social Security office, Dollar Tree. Several times I've had somebody sit on our bench, like coming out like at 10 o'clock at night to open our garage. She's my neighbor here. I mean, she has her son there, but we call, and like we said, we can't do anything about it, because once they're gone, they're gone. I've had people like go into my car searching for change. These are issues that we, like the last couple of years, we've been trying to, like, I mean, we got the wash closed, which is, I mean, it's great, and it has kind of like, you know, brought it down a little bit, but now they're going over there to where the dentistry is. My uncle owns that dentistry over there, and there's nothing he could do. They're sleeping behind the alley. They're waiting right next to the donation center so they could pull a couch or a mattress, whatever is being donated, so they could pull to the back to fall asleep on. St. Christopher's had sponsored our family in 1975. It's sad to see that they're having to have a gate built around the school now so they can't enter at night. And once again, I get it, you guys are understaffed and there's not very much you guys could do, but when I hear family, friends getting their purse snatched and the group is hanging out over there and there's nothing we could do because you don't know who to pinpoint it at, it's sad. And it's the church that had opened up their arms. We don't even want to do the homeless shelter anymore just because it has brought in so much into the city. Like, you know, you could blame St. Christopher's for bringing it in. Yeah, I get it. But you can also blame the free clinic. You can also blame the Social Security office when it's like a one-stop shop. They see what a great community you are and they want to stay. So how are we, like, $50,000 doesn't sound like enough funding to, you know, just say, okay, well, it's going to end now. When when the $50,000 is gone, where else are we going to look after? Like, what else are we going to do? We can't be like Utah or whatever. Like, you know, I mean, I get it, but it's just an issue that we've been dealing with. And, you know, Rita's been there since, what, 60s. I mean, Miss Mary Jo, she's been there since the 50s. I mean, we have seen the city grow, and it's great that we're getting all these, you know, new businesses coming in. But it's a sad sight to see the regulars that are sleeping, that are building shelters, like at the old Korean church that was there. Like, they're just making our city not look appealing anymore. So how are we supposed to get, you know, resources to get rid of that?
Well, we are working to address those issues. I'll start with like what is it, not behind the Dollar Tree, what did you mention?
The dentistry.
No, where they're dropping off
the donation center.
Goodwill, the donation center, sorry. Our Hope team has been working specifically with the Goodwill centers because we have a few in the city, and it is like a dumping ground for people to leave their stuff, and it's like the lottery for the homeless person, right? Because they have everything's there and they wait for it. So what we're trying to do is work with the businesses. Our Hope team and our code enforcement people are working with the business owners to try to gate those facilities and only have drop-offs maybe during opening business hours so they can kind of control that so we don't have the onslaught of that. So we have recognized that as a problem, and we are working with our business owners. That area specific she's talking about, West Covina Parkway, Vincent, Glendora there, you know, there are homeless services there. Right now, currently, there's a shelter program where the homeless are living in shelters at night for a place to sleep, and it's sponsored at different cities, different churches. That's a pickup and a drop-off location. So That's where they wait in the parking lot. There's financial services there in the area. As you mentioned, there's a free clinic for medical services in the area. So that's part of contributing for the dense population. Now, as far as the criminal activity, you know, like I said, if being an officer here, if somebody's purse snatched, we're going to investigate that crime. And, you know, we do have to do things legally. We just can't go arrest a group of people because we know it's one of them. You know, we do an investigation, but hopefully I speak for the police department that we wouldn't turn our back on a purse snatch investigation. If you come out of your house and there's homeless people sitting on your front porch, that is not acceptable. You know, you can always through the door ask them to leave, call us, we will respond. If these people refuse to leave, you know, we will enforce trespass laws on your home. You are entitled to that, but you know, that's gonna, you know, there's some willing residents that will have to sign the private person's arrest for that, and there's some residents who aren't willing to do that. And sometimes we can't make those arrests without the resident signing those forms and pushing forward with it. And it's uncomfortable for the resident, we get it, those are the laws. But we will hopefully come move them out if nothing else. And if it's a reoccurring problem, we're gonna have to deal with that. What I do encourage you, if you are having specific problems in your area, not only can you contact the whole team, but you can also look on our city website. We have service area lieutenants who are responsible for all areas of the city. If you have a specific problem that needs to be addressed, we strongly encourage you to call them. Email us, there's the email address, there's pictures on there. Call them, please. Let us know your issues and we'll deal with it. If it's something you need to call 911 right away, we encourage everybody to call and we'll respond to the calls.
And I did want to follow up on the comment that you made about the $50,000. So the city made an initial pledge and gave money to the county, $50,000 for rapid rehousing and $50,000 for our community partners. That was a one-time funding. There's additional ongoing funds that are given annually through our community development block grant recipients and the same people that are providing hotel vouchers. At one point, the emergency shelter was happening here at St. Christopher's, food pantries, etc. So there's an ongoing contribution by the city. By no means is it the end-all be-all funding. That was part of the ballot measure passing through the county, what the cities were hoping to get ongoing funding for homeless services and programs.
Nicole, can you clarify that the $50,000 is only for the plan also? I think that's what you're saying.
Oh, are you talking about the $50,000 for the plan? Yeah, the $50,000 for the plan actually is a different amount depending upon the city and the homeless count. So the Home for Good United Way, that's who actually funded the grants for cities, and ours happens to be $50,000 because of our homeless count. Some cities got less, some cities got a little bit more. So that's where that comes from.
And it's only to plan.
I'm sorry?
It's only to create the plan.
Correct. It is only for the plan. There's been some misconception out there that $50,000, if we only spent, you know, $10,000 on the consultant, we'd have $40,000 for programming. Unfortunately, it's for the plan and nothing else. Anything goes back to United Way.
So thank you. I know this is a session for a solution, so I want to offer a solution, and that is with the strike team, or whatever you're calling it, perhaps you can get funding for social workers, which would be assigned to West Covina, and also the school system, because there are many people in the school system that are homeless. They don't identify themselves as homeless because it's a stigma. You have many women living in cars with their children, and they're totally oblivious to any of this. So I think you need help with social workers as well, and they need to be assigned to the city so they get to learn about the problems in this city, and they can build upon the program.
You said that the judge won't allow you to move somebody out of the park because there's no housing available. You have to provide them housing or a room of some kind. Does that also include a place to stay with this tent? He's got his tent in the park and you can't move him unless you give him housing, but can you give him another place to stay with his tent? Because we can, but like I said,
we can move them.
Their spot, like PPK. I didn't thought about PPK, but that's huge.
Where?
I mean, PKK.
Oh, I don't think we want to move our homeless to BKK, but I get where
in any area large enough to put everybody together so we don't have to spread out all over the community in one area.
That's a solution. I just want to make clear, if you're illegally camping in the park, we will eventually make you move, but we have to first offer a housing solution. And, you know, I would just say we just can't run in and knock everybody's tent down and arrest everybody. Everybody has rights.
But if there's an area where they can sit their tent up legally and say, okay, you guys can stay here. This is an area for you guys to set up a tent and stay.
I get it. I don't have an answer to that.
My name's Audrey Lindbergh, and back in 1978, I got involved with a program the YWCA was working on, and that was domestic violence. I spent about 20 years helping develop grants and working with community, raising funds, and it was a highly successful program. And so my feeling on this issue, it really is a social problem that should come under the auspices of the YWCA or even other agencies. That's my thoughts on it. And so I've done a lot of work on it, so I won't go into other detail.
Nicole, do you want to touch on that?
Yes, but it's a multifaceted problem that we have, and it's not just government's issue to fix. And we have various community partners throughout San Gabriel region that we're working with. And what I would like to offer is that as residents and in my own community, we face homelessness. And we as residents always think that it's an urgency item to move somebody into homelessness. And what I can tell you, and I'm sure Letitia and Rachel, one of the things that when you go to place somebody into housing, whether it be temporary or transitional longer term, for us, we want that person placed immediately. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a process that you have to go through. So even if it's a few weeks or a couple months, that's actually good. And that's hard for some of us to digest, but that's the reality. So thank you for talking about the organizations that take this on, because there are many of them and they do a lot of good work, and we're working on that with them.
A question for the police.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I just want to say that unfortunately at this point I think that the residents are the ones that are the victims here, because it seems like the homeless have more rights than we do. I have a group of homeless that hang out behind the church where the Church of Latter-day Saints on Orange. The officers have been out. They've moved the homeless out. The next morning, my neighbor and I were walking, and they were back there. The park that is located across from Edgewood High, there's a father and son team, and now the son has a girlfriend living there. They sleep under the park bench there. I have seen the officers there speaking with them. But they're there every day, and they have all of their, like she addressed, all of their stuff, junk, whatever, trash, on these picnic tables. And for me, it's a health issue, because you've got families that want to come there on the weekend and enjoy the park, and you've got these men, and now a woman, sleeping under the benches, picking up their mats and whatever else they sleep on, and putting all of the junk on the tables. And you've got kids that are walking by there to school. That's my concern, mostly a health concern. And also now we have a gentleman that has a raggedy motorhome parked right in front of my home. He's been there since last Tuesday. I've used the West Covina website to address it, and nothing's been done. He was out there today. And I think there may be some illegal drug activity going on there, because there's people going in and out at night. So what else could they be doing? So I would appreciate if, you know, if we as homeowners, you know, can get together and help each other, because it's just ruining our home values. So thank you.
If I could just address Lisa.
Oh, yes.
Do me a favor before you leave. We'd love to get the address and,
Sure.
and we'll address that motorhome issue.
Thank you so much.
Hi, as far as the HOPE team, how are you collecting data as to the times that you're going out? Is that some data that could be shared with us? The success rate, people accepting resources or declining them? Is that some numbers that we could eventually look at to see if that's helping?
Sure. Sure, it's definitely information that we're just going to have to figure out a means to get it out so people can see that. I can tell you the numbers accepting resources are extremely low, but we do document all of our contacts, and we do have information cards that we fill out every time we do reach out to a homeless individual and we offer them services. We do fill out an information card saying, hey, we were here this day, we contacted this person and we offered these services and they declined.
Oh, just a quick follow-up to that. So can you walk me through what would happen? Like, for instance, your HOPE team responds to a call. What would be the process? What resources are you offering at that point?
To the homeless person to deal with their homelessness?
Yes.
We offer them mental health services if that applies.
Is that with the Department of Mental Health?
Yes. We offer them housing solutions through the county.
Is that the CES, the Coordinated Entry System?
Yep. We offer them food services through local food banks. There's many partners that the city has and resources that we have. You know, there's places for them to get clothes. And like Nicole said, you know, even if somebody accepts services, it's not immediately. It's something that's a follow-up with the county that comes out. It's a kind of a slow process. But all the services that are available are what we offer.
Thank you.
And then it's a gamut of services. I mean, there's a bunch of services available.
The question that I have, after you offer services decline, what is going to happen to those that choose to stay on the streets? Has anybody thought about long-term, what are we going to do with them by choice?
I think that's why we're here. I think that's the point of this plan, to try to figure out a more long-term solution. Because after services are, you know, they refuse services, we can deal with criminal aspects, violators of the law. But if you have non-criminal homeless people, that's why we're here. Because we haven't as a society come up with a solution long-term yet to deal with them. And that's what we're looking for.
And to follow up what Ken's saying, I think that we as a society have the resources for veterans. We have services for families, children, women who have been abused, or men who have been abused. It's the chronically homeless who choose not to get services or not to be placed in housing, which is a huge component of what our plan will be focusing on, because as you have all indicated, that is an issue, and an issue that law enforcement faces as well.
For the rights.
Well, it's not that nothing can be done, but steps have to be taken, and we as a city have to take good faith efforts, or we will find ourselves in court. And that's just the simplest way. So we, on a daily basis, are trying to balance the rights of those who are experiencing homeless and trying to provide public safety. And as you can hear, it's very difficult because some people have positive encounters and some people don't. People want to go to the parks. I get it all the time. I want to go to the park. I want to take my child. I want to be safe. We can't arrest somebody who's homeless or perceived to be homeless just because they're hanging out and loitering in a park or loitering in the right-of-way. So those are the realities that we face, and so we do hear you, and part of the message that we'll go back and they're writing it down and we're talking about it is how do we address that and make an impact.
Nicole, real quick. Maybe I can also. So, you know, we do recognize that as part of our county's homeless initiative effort, that there may be people who don't have the capacity to make that decision for themselves. There is state legislation that kind of limits the circumstances under which you can declare someone incompetent and put them in conservatorship. So recently our Board of Supervisors adopted a motion to explore legislation and working at the statewide level to expand that ability to, based on the recommendation of social workers and consistent engagement of outreach teams, to be able to place someone under conservatorship because they don't have the ability. So that is something that at the county-wide level we're also exploring and trying to work with our state legislators.
Can you introduce yourself again for those that came in and didn't
My
hear your
guest.
introduction?
Yes, my name is Leticia Colchado. I am with Los Angeles County Chief Executive Office. I'm a member of the Homeless Initiative team. Our team was formed in August of 2015 to kind of overlook or oversee the county-wide effort to combat homelessness. West Covina is near and dear to me because I also am a resident and homeowner here in the city. I've lived in the city for 10 years, and when I was a kid, I grew up here as well. So, you know, Nicole and I communicate regularly, and I always pay special attention to what's going on in West Covina. And I can assure you that at the county-wide level, you know, we are doing a lot, and I don't want to take away from solutions, but maybe if there's a few minutes towards the end, I can kind of just give an update on some of the county-wide efforts, because I would hate to see you guys leave and not know what's going on in the broader system. And I think it is really aligned with a lot of the solutions that you all have come up with. So.
And let's take about 10 more minutes for questions, and we'll switch to doing the solutions like she's talking about.
Okay, we have one right here, a couple more, and then I'll switch to the other chair. We have one back here.
What are the shift hours of the Hope team?
For a solution, we have an ideal model in the Orange County Rescue Mission, and I don't know how many are familiar with that, but it's a place where about 400 residents live. Some are there by their own self, some are put there by the court system. But it's a lockdown facility that you don't leave unless you're looking for a job or working. Everybody that's there has a job. Everybody there is taught different job skills. So when they leave there, they have the skills. They teach them how to use a computer, how to do a resume. But we don't have any training like that up in the Central Valley. There's nothing to send people to. But it's an ideal solution. If you look at it, look on that webpage, you'll see it solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, real quick while we're moving to the next question. The question was asked for the hours of Hope. So they work Monday through Thursday is their base schedule. They work 6 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Do they respond in tandem, or are they separate?
Normally they're two-person calls, so they're going to go together.
So that those of us who work during the week and we have issues on the weekend, then
Our patrol officers are 100% available to respond to any calls that you have. And if we experience a specific issue that we need to adjust, you know, Hope to come in on a weekend to deal with some specific issue that you have that rises to that level, we'll bring them in to address it. But our patrol officers are always available to respond to your calls.
Those hours don't make sense.
This problem we're discussing is a social problem. It's a moral problem, and compassion has to be part of the solution. So my question for the police is, the police deal with the black letter law. And some of the people that are homeless are living in their cars. If a person that's living in their car is insured, has a driver's license, and they're legally parked, does the police have a right to impound that car and you know, get it off the streets? You know, to get the homeless, I mean, what are the rules that the police have to abide in order to impound somebody's car?
Based on your scenario, if they're legally parked, they're legally registered, legally licensed, then they have a right to park there like anybody else does.
And they're insured.
Right. We have a 72-hour parking ordinance in the city. If they're parked in one spot for over 72 hours, then we can come out and impound the car.
Hello, my name is Jefferson DeRue. I heard you say homelessness is not a crime, and I agree it isn't. However, many other things they do are illegal. For example, intoxication, loitering, prowling, fighting, trespassing, aggressive panhandling, soliciting, urinating, and defecating, consuming alcohol beverages in certain public places, camping and sleeping in parks, littering, obstructing sidewalks, living in vehicles, as just mentioned. Which of these crimes do you not either give citations or arrest for? Because that seems to be the problem of those that are taking advantage of the homeless situation. They themselves may not be homeless, but they're hiding within that population and perpetrating many, many of these crimes. Why are they not cited or arrested for them?
tell you that homeless individuals in our city are cited and are arrested for the crimes that they commit. You know, different levels of crimes, infractions, misdemeanors, felonies. There are some crimes we cannot arrest for, and there are some crimes that we can. So the crimes that we can cite for, we cite. The crimes that a misdemeanor, we could sometimes cite, we could sometimes arrest. It's up to the officer's discretion. They are.
Which of these can you not?
Out of those lists,
Yes.
which one can we arrest?
Which you cannot.
Cannot arrest. Okay, so you can't arrest for infraction. So you know, drinking a beer in public, loitering could be misdemeanor, could not be. You know, and you're dealing with spirit of the law, letter of the law. There's some instances where not everybody who commits a crime or an infraction is going to get a ticket. Not everybody is going to go to jail. But the criminal activity in the city, the officers do go out there and enforce, and they make sound decisions as to whether somebody goes to jail or receives a citation, or both, or neither. It's just on an individual basis.
Hi, I'm speaking from the aspect of a business. I've been working in West Covina for many years, and I don't want to repeat what a lot of people already said. They kind of hit on things. But in our store, the crime rate has gone up tremendously. People are very generous here in West Covina. They give money, but guess what? That money is used to buy alcohol. People give them food as an alternative. They throw it in the trash can. We see our customers harassed. They're stealing alcohol all day long, drugs, whatever they can get their hands on. We don't see a presence, not to, get on the law enforcement, but we don't see anything. Not even driving in the parking lot. We didn't see any police in our parking lot until they actually had a shooting in that area. So when the police do show up, they do kind of like take off, but the crime rate is really getting bad. They harass the customers, they take the stuff.
And again, my response to that would be we really encourage you to call the police. Hopefully it sounds like you've probably made a lot of complaints about what's going on in your store, so we should have record of it. And I do encourage you to get with me after, and we can talk about it, or you can get with our HOPE officers, and if there's something we can...
I think we need to change the time they patrol for the whole patrol.
You need to change the times they patrol?
Because I get off work around 3:30, and in the afternoon, if on a day off, Wamarauto Park is empty, but around 3:30, 4 o'clock, it starts filling up with all the homeless people.
It's actually pretty full in the morning too, so
that's
you either start in the morning before they get up and move them out, or you work at night.
There's more.
We have 24-hour patrol officers, so if there's specific issues later on in the afternoon or evening that you'd like addressed, please give us a call and let us know, and we'll respond.
I drive there every day. They're there every day. 10, 15, yeah. Just the other day on Sunday, there was a fight.
Yeah, I've seen that.
No, I get it. I wish I could have
I
20
understand.
more officers to assign.
But I just think when you mentioned the schedule, it kind of just didn't, like, Monday through Thursday, when Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you see that more, and you have more of the kids at the baseball park. It'd probably be better to have the whole team there during those times.
It's something good that we can suggest to the weekend guys. During the week, you got schools to deal with. You got the businesses that are opening that have the homeless hanging out in front of them who don't want the homeless there when they open. So there are specific problems to specific times at night. We try to address the higher times that we could do the most good. And like I said, if issues in the city dictate that we, move the schedule around to facilitate that, then that's something that we'll definitely look at, but I appreciate it.
All right, we are about the 2-minute warning from the consultant. So I have a question here, and then I have 2 in the front, and then we'll turn it back over to Rachel.
Hi, my parents bought their house in the late 60s, and I've been born and raised here in West Covina, and I've personally experienced more crime. Our house was broken into last year, and I used to come back from vacation and just love coming down Kellogg Hill and seeing West Covina, and I don't feel that anymore. And I just want to know. I know that there's a group of homelessness people that won't go into the public housing because they own animals. And animals aren't accepted at the housing. So I want to know how that's being addressed if we're going to be putting together a plan. And also I want to know if trash is being left, what are the studies being done on the rats that are being bred from the trash from the homeless and the diseases that they're carrying throughout the city?
It's hard for me to answer.
Yeah, we don't have an answer for you on that, but that's the first I've heard that animals completely aren't allowed, because I know there are some that actually have kennels, portable kennels for them. So, but we will look into it and we'll make some notes and.
Thank you. My name is Drexel Smith. I've lived in the Valley a long time, and for the past 8 years I've had an office on Glendora Avenue. Without exception, every day, I interact and I'm confronted with homeless and transit people that are living on Glendora Avenue. Because of that, being upfront and personal with many of them, in deference to Jim, I see the problem a little finer cut than the 3 you had. And I mentioned that I think we have a population that has clearly mental issues, substance abuse. We have some veterans. We have people with economic hard times. We have people that have been released from some system, as been shared. And we do have a percentage of our population that are true vagabonds. They truly want to be on their own. So I see at least 6 populations, and I mention that not to redefine the problem, but to suggest that each of those populations has a different solution set. I'm only beginning to try to understand the problem, and I want to say I highly commend and thank every person in the city of West Covina, from Chris's office, the manager, to the police department. You've truly been a partner for the past 8 years in trying to deal with different solutions, and I want to thank each and one of you, because the solutions are a challenge. There isn't one solution. I suggest to us each one of these populations requires something different. Through the Rotary Club, the Vet Finders program has done a marvelous job to go out at night to literally find vets throughout the San Gabriel Valley to provide them a solution to get on their feet and down the road. But that's only one piece. So I commend the fact that the city has a consultant with some ideas. I look to really hear what we can do to solutions, but I suggest the homeless may be one word, but it's compartmentalized into some really tough pieces, and each one of them are unique and different solution sets.
Wow.
Thank you. My name is Lupita Gonzalez, and I own a home in here in West Covina. I love this city, and I also own a business, a Mexican food restaurant in West Covina, and we like to help our community with fundraisings in schools, teams, and stuff like that. But I was broken into a week ago, and I want to know how the police department is helping businesses to, how are the businesses dealing with breaking into, or like this lady in the back said that they walk into their businesses to steal. At first, about 5 years ago, our customers will buy food for the people that are asking for money. They would bring them in, buy them some sort of food, but it looks like it's getting worse, because now they not only want food, they want to ask for money, and they started hanging around the business a lot. And I just want to know how the police department is dealing with businesses, with, you know, small businesses like my restaurant, that we want to be compassionate with everybody that, you know, ask us for help,
But then again, it's just becoming a problem now because now it's just like too many of them. They're everywhere and they're leaving their trash. They don't care about taking the trash to the trash can. They get food and they dump it on the floor. They smoke. They even needles and clothing. Sometimes it's just like piles of clothing left, you know. So we just want to know how are we going to deal with this as businesses, but like now, because it's happening right now. Like every day we have those problems, and sometimes we don't want to make them our enemies because we don't know how dangerous they are. And now I'm thinking that it was one of them that broke into our restaurant because they want money. They want they want to drink or they want to buy drugs. I don't know what they need the money specifically for, but I know it's like it's happening, and I want to know if other businesses how they're dealing with it, and if it's happening a lot, what can we do now to help ourselves?
What's the location of your business?
Amar and Belinda.
Okay, well, first of all, we're sorry that you were broken into. I just have to tell you that in the city of West Covina, our rate of commercial burglary, so businesses, is pretty low. But you may be exactly right. It may have been one of the transients homeless. It's really hard to tell. The most important thing, Lieutenant Plunkett's already talked about it, is calling us. A lot of times people assume that we know that there's a problem, and we don't. You know, 17 square miles, you know, we have so many police officers, so, you know, the more that we get calls, we can track some of these and have that data available so that we can extra patrol certain areas. One of the other things that's really tough on businesses right now is over the last couple of years, the voters have decided to decriminalize some of the laws. So we used to have a law of commercial burglary. Somebody goes in with a bag, they load up stuff, they walk out. We could arrest them for commercial burglary. But that was taken off the books. That's not there anymore. So now, if it's under $950, it's only a petty theft. And, you know, but again, the voters in the state of California passed that. Now that wasn't, you know, that makes our job increasingly tough. And I can just tell you on behalf of every person on our department, civilian and sworn, that we truly care about making the city great. We really do. Our people work hard. And, you know, if you call us, we will absolutely be there. We prioritize calls. So sometimes it takes a little longer sometimes to get there than what people would like. But we will definitely be there. And then we're able to track that. We take a report, and our crime analysts can help us, you know, solve some of these crimes. But a lot of people will say, oh, it's only $20 worth of stuff. I'm not going to bother the police. I'm not going to call. And then we don't know about it. So I would just encourage you. A lot of people say, well, we don't want to, you know, bother you. We know you're busy. But that's what we're here for. We're here to solve your problems. So the more information you have, the better we can serve you. So I would just encourage that. I just want to, before I leave, I just want to thank everybody for being here. And like I said, you know, I'm a resident too. I'm with you on all of these issues. You know, they're important to me as well. And, you know, we try to do a really good job of serving the community. But it's so good to have a community that supports the police as well. So we're very fortunate to have all of you supporting us, and we want to do the best job possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I meant to mention this before, but somebody had mentioned Wikipedia or an information source. The city has a great website on the cityofwestcovina.org under the residents tab, and it's homeless resources. There's a ton of information, all of our resources we have. And Nicole, if you have any suggestions on things that need to be added or resources that you'd like to see on there, Nicole says you can email her and send her your suggestions.
Yeah, I was thinking about a homelessness hub or something like that.
And this might be the answer to that. Check it out. It might be perfect for you.
Thank you.
Getting into those strategies. I just want to take another minute to thank West Covina Police Department for coming and the host team. Thank you for all that you do. So we have about 20 minutes, and I did want to say I've been kind of listening to concerns, and I've been also hearing some solutions. So those of you, who need to take off, I understand it's getting a little late, but we could spend a little time. I just want to run past you if this is what you think. You said this is what I thought I heard about potential solutions. Let's leave with agreement. And then ask you some questions about maybe some other potential strategies. I did want to point one thing out about outreach, and that's again something that I want to really commend the HOPE team and the HALO team and the police department in general and any outreach team. It sometimes takes 10, 12, 30, 40, 50 times to engage with a homeless person before they're finally ready to take services. It might be just a particular day and the right time, and they're lucid and they're ready to take it. So we should really encourage increased outreach, but also just know that people are overcoming incredible barriers when they accept services, and that's a really vulnerable position for them to be in. And so we should really support outreach teams and know that it does work if you keep doing it and you build trust. Yeah.
Okay, with that, what number as us, as people who live here in the city and we see a homeless person, what's the number of the HOPE group that we can call and say, you know what, there's this homeless man right here, you want to come and talk to him, I've seen him, it's going to take at least more than, like you said, one time for them to get their help. So what number can we call so they can come and do their one time out of 15?
Totally. I can answer that. So even though the HOPE team works in tandem, there is not a specific number for HOPE. You're going to call dispatch because what they will do is prioritize calls for service. So whether that be that you have a 911 emergency or you're calling the non-emergency dispatch number, and where are my police officers? What's the direct line to dispatch back there? HOPE team. They're in need.
8500. 8500.
Okay, the last four is 8500. Thank you, because I couldn't remember my phone number. 939. Like, which zip code am I in today? 626-939-8500 is the number that you can call for dispatch, and they will prioritize calls. What the HOPE team has is a benefit that more than, say, our regular patrol. But I will say our regular patrol is getting additional training. Sheriff's Department's working with our staff to do some additional resources for homelessness in terms of what you encounter. And all of them will do intake forms. So when they come upon somebody experiencing homelessness, whether or not it's the HOPE team or regular patrol officers, they're taking down information, and they know our regulars, right? They know, so that's part of why we're building the statistics, because before they didn't exist because it wasn't as big of an issue. So I think our HOPE team launched live, fully active in September of 2017. So they haven't been out there actively doing what they're doing, although they were doing it to some extent. So don't get discouraged if you feel like, well, nothing was done this time. You don't necessarily, and I do need to reinforce this, folks, you don't necessarily know what was discussed because there are HIPAA violations. They can't go back and tell you what took place, what conversations. There's a lot of confidentiality going on, especially when you're talking about mental health and substance abuse when they encounter them. So please don't get discouraged. Continue to call. The police department and I cannot express enough to you the importance of make that phone call to dispatch, whether it is an emergency or non-emergency. If there's something going on that is making you feel uncomfortable or whatever the circumstance may be, let our dispatch triage that and sort it out, and an officer can come to you, okay? So, thank you.
And that actually is a great segue into some initial considerations for strategies. You can look over these questions to kind of build on some ideas, but that actually brings up an important thing about a community toolkit. What do I do in this situation? And like I was saying, Leticia, you're building the county's launching initiatives at March 12th? March 9th. Do you want to?
So there's going to be a kickoff, actually. United Way is kicking off an Everyone In campaign, which is, it'll have resources and toolkits for how to connect with people, things that cities could do, It's kind of just a marketing kind of campaign to encourage that we bring everyone in and that we consider new ways of bringing people in.
And then we can build on that as part of the plan action steps to make that city specific. So is that something that you guys is that something that you would like to see in your plan? A city-specific toolkit for what to do?
I think that would be very helpful for the business.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, kind of business owner and city. Okay, good, because I thought I heard that, so that's good. I also heard, we talked a little bit about, potential drop-in center shelter site, right? When we can't bus people in and force them to stay there, it's still, they have to choose to go. But, the City of Pomona has recently developed a day center that's connected to services and the coordinated entry system, and then also has shelter beds. And I believe they're on a 90-day cycle, but folks who are kind of doing the work to get, stabilized can re-up with that. So is that something then? I mean, how are you open to using maybe some older properties to develop a shelter site to stabilize people?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because the other things they need, they can get food pretty easily. We have a lot of resources. Sorry. We have a lot of resources for food and those kinds of things. But what we don't have, and that homeless people need, are where do they wash their clothes? Where can they wash themselves? And we have a lot of great faith-based groups who are trying to fill in, but it's very expensive. So, but if we had a center, and that's not to enable, but to assist people.
Rachel, did you want to explain what coordinated entry system is?
Sure. So the coordinated entry system is actually a system that prioritizes people based on need. So it's a large kind of shared database through, of course, more acronyms. There's the coordinated entry. There's HMIS, which stands for the Homeless Management Information System, and it's a database that's shared. It's national. But you can you can track individuals as they make progress through the services. But what happens is with initial outreach, you'll have an intake and an assessment, and typically that's done with, there's one called the VI SPDAT, which is a very long acronym, but it's an assessment of vulnerability. It gets people's names, digits, last place that how long they've been homeless, and kind of gets as much information as possible. And then that individual is tracked in the system with, of course, all the appropriate privacy rights. But the way that coordinated entry works then, and it's again a national best practice that the county fully supports, is when people are go through the intake process to get into the shelters, they're then prioritized for housing based on need. So if you are elderly, maybe severely disabled, maybe have years of addiction issues that put you in very, very frail health, you may be prioritized above someone who is able to, kind of is more work ready. So there's a greatest good for the greatest number aspect to coordinated entry, but it does prioritize the most vulnerable so that they're not on the streets in ill health. Yeah.
Well, Rachel, one thing you might consider, and this is what they did in downtown LA, they have a system called the bin, and all the homeless people who want help can take their belongings to the bin, and they're given a big 50-gallon trash container where they can put everything in it, and they're given a number and it locks. They have 8 floors of this, so it takes all the stuff off the street. Now they have a place to store their things in a safe environment, and they also feel better about looking for help, those who want help.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, and a lot of the day centers will have a locker. There's actually some new designs too, because I think most of us, particularly if you're out on the street, that your stuff can be everything, right? It's all you have. So they've created relatively large-sized lockers with the beds within the shelters that then have a lock, so people have that sense of control over their own stuff. What's also interesting and wonderful about the coordinated entry system is you can take a lot of different common places that homeless people go, libraries, to one of these bins, these storage centers, and you can make that an access point for people to get an assessment. Again, it would have to be voluntary if they participate in that assessment, but you increase your odds that someone will accept outreach if each place that they go, they're, asked in a respectful way by someone who can build trust over time, that they would get into that. So there's a lot of kind of unique opportunities there with those kinds of systems. So thank you for that. Hold on just a sec. Let me make sure I get through a couple of these. So we talked about foundation involvement. What about maybe faith-based communities and looking at some service provision? Do we have a healthy kind of faith-based community? Is it, do we have a lot of activity here? Yes. Okay, great. So those are some potential partners. Is anyone actively involved in any of those activities? With their, yeah. Okay. Great. A little bit. Hey, a little bit is good. A little bit is still a lot. Okay, so maybe looking at some public-private partnerships to get some services flowing in. Let's see. Case management, so school in-reach, stabilizing families. You guys have already, that's something that the council has already prioritized, right? Some subsidized housing for families, subsidized housing for people with disabilities, and also prevention services for families. Are those things that you also could get behind? Prevention services being short-term housing subsidies, legal counseling.
Single mothers with their children in cars and things like that. Okay. It would make such differences in their lives.
She said it would make such differences in their lives, yeah. Okay, great. So homelessness prevention for families is something we can agree on, yeah. We also talked about some school in-reach. So I think that's something that we can do with increased case management and services. I also heard expanded outreach times, so changing the times that HOPE goes out, or maybe getting, again, as part of that toolkit, understanding that the HOPE team can be called out in special cases, but that there are other folks who will come out and do the same work that needs to be done. So that would be another important thing, I think, to put in the toolkit. What else? What else am I missing? What about the business community? How many business owners do we have here? Okay. There are some really unique solutions there to create a position for a homeless person, right? To get back on their feet, to start earning income. How many of you would be open to a program like that if you were receiving some incentives? For the state actually has a tax credit for employing certain populations of homeless people, and I know that we're looking into some different workforce. Do you know of anything else off the top of your head? Workforce development strategies for small businesses?
So there's subsidized employment opportunities where you can sign up to bring in someone who has who's previously homeless, kind of give them some experience, and the county will subsidize some of the wages. You have the right to interview them and choose them just like you would any employee, but there are subsidized employment opportunities. Partnering with social enterprise also. For those of you who aren't familiar, social enterprises are organizations such as Homeboy Industries, where they take people who have barriers and work extensively with them, and so you may be contracting so for example, if you need landscaping services around your business or janitorial services, you would work directly with Homeboy Industries or a social enterprise agency who would then hire the people, make sure they're work ready, and be responsible, provide ongoing support and case management, and you would be dealing kind of with the Homeboy Industries or the organization. So there's lots of organizations like that really work to support people who have a lot of barriers and haven't traditionally had a whole lot of work experience. So our American Job Career Centers, we're fortunate to have one in West Covina. Working in partnership with them is our opportunity as well.
Another opportunity, is there a business improvement district formed yet? So that's another opportunity. You would essentially be voting in you would be constructing a voluntary assessment on your own, your fees to the bid that could then go into supporting additional services for outreach and cleanup. So again, this isn't money coming to you, this is you actually chipping into a collective pot that would then address some of the issues that business owners are having. That's another potential solution or another potential strategy for working up. Do I have anyone who's wildly opposed to the creation of a bid or workforce? I don't want, you don't have to, yeah, you are?
Yes, only based on previous experience in the city.
Okay. What do you mean?
It has not worked well in West Covina.
Oh, business improvement district?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sounds like then maybe.
We had it previously. It doesn't exist because it wasn't working well in the eyes of the business community.
Okay, okay, that's important. You said bids were not working well in the eyes of the business community. So I want to continue on and get a few more strategies, but let me just.
The lady in the front row brought up this subject before. We have car washes in West Covina, but the hygiene issue. Is there a gym that the city could purchase or some organization that the city of West Covina could work with that homeless people could just go to clean up? That's a piece. Drexel mentioned this is a multifaceted, complicated problem, and it has to be worked at, one piece at a time. And, I'm just sitting here in my chair ignorant. If I'm homeless and I want to clean up, where do I go in West Covina?
I'm really hopeful nobody will take away that I was suggesting homeless should go through a car wash.
Well, I don't mean, that was just a metaphor.
No, got it.
There was just an article in the paper the other day, and I'm trying to think of the name of the church, and I believe it's in Pasadena. But they bring in huge portable showers. They bring in portable showers once a week.
Yeah, actually there's other cities that have done that as well. In Orange County they did that along the flood control channel along the 57. There were showers that were brought in to help with sanitation issues.
Why not just a fixed facility? Buy a gym that's going out of business. They have all kinds of showers.
City has not.
Part of those drop-in centers too is a possibility as well. Is that again something that people would be comfortable supporting? Funded showers and okay, great. I'm sorry. I thought you said something. Okay.
Well, I say the city has no money.
Oh yeah, exactly. The city does have no money. So if we were to look at, so what's interesting, so the SB2 compliance, right? So there's money coming down from Senate Bill 2 if you create transitional shelter housing or crisis or bridge housing. There's money coming down to assist with the development of that. And so that actually is a potential funding opportunity.
Tax, half cent tax or 4% tax help all the homeless people in the county?
We did. That's Measure H in the Homelessness Initiative. Yeah. So there's money that comes directly to the cities. That money. So county, it's kind of the rule of thumb is city is bricks and mortar, county is services. So it's service dollars that do flow into the city. If the city provides housing, the county will come in and provide all the wraparound services for that individual. So that's how the money, it flows a little bit differently. It's just that it doesn't flow straight into the city's coffers. It flows through the service providers, yeah. Of course it has to be complicated, right? It's the government. Okay, and I did hear you loud and clear that the bid thing is not, maybe that there's got to be different solutions for the business community. I think the business community can be partners, so maybe that's a discussion to continue as we develop the plan. But I appreciate any of the openness of the business community to helping to provide jobs to give people a hand up. Okay, so yeah, I think last thing, closing with housing. So there's things like shared housing. There's developing accessory dwelling units. There's density bonuses for developers to build a few more units on a property to designate them for affordable. Are those strategies that you would support, maybe subsidizing some of those units for homeless folks?
The density issue.
Density? So density is a concern? Okay, okay.
What about converting blighted motels?
What about converting blighted motels? Do you guys have any of those in West Covina? What? You don't have enough, you said? Okay, yeah, so maybe some underutilized or blighted property. Maybe kept at a certain level so it's designed well, so it's less dense. Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
When these people are homeless, are they eligible for some type of state aid?
When people are homeless, are they eligible for some sort of state aid?
They have to probably apply through an agency.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously Social Security income, right, SSI, so, and Social Security disability income, which...
Any type of funding that they would be eligible for. What age they are, I don't know.
Yeah, so most people who are homeless would be eligible for some of the Social Security disability funding depending on their particular situation. So yes, that money does exist. There's actually a large part of case management services that look at potential different benefits that individuals are eligible for. So that's, you know, a lot of times when you're intaking a veteran, right? You see if they've accessed any of their benefits, and if not, if you can get them moved to that. Which, you know, usually involves establishing their identification, getting the right, you know, the birth records and everything, validating their service, and then they can get connected even to back benefits, right, to back pay.
So where do they pick up their money? They have to be associated with an agency of some type.
Have to have an address for sure.
Pardon?
You have to have an address where you can mail that check, right?
No, they don't.
What?
They don't have
cards and direct deposits.
Oh, cards with direct deposits, so just into the bank account. Great. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else then? So no density, but potentially open to underutilized sites to develop more housing. Doesn't have to just be for homeless folks, but housing that's affordable to low-income people, because that is also part of homelessness prevention, is simply building more units. Is anyone wildly opposed to that?
The problem is the low-income units don't end up to be affordable.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you can...
They're newer, and maybe they're smaller in square footage and things like that make it sound more affordable. Ultimately, it's not affordable.
Do you mean because the rents rise? She's saying ultimately some of those affordable units end up not being affordable. You mean because the rents are so high? Typically what you would do is you would put what's called an affordability covenant on them, which are about 45 or 50 years, that designate that unit as affordable, so that it has a loan that rides on top of the primary loan that keeps the rent locked at a certain value.
Somebody really has to have good oversight, because they did that in San Francisco, and the cheats bought the places and up went the rents, and nobody's looking over it.
Right. The affordability covenant is something that would be locked in through the transfers of property. So yeah, you do have to watch that. Absolutely. That's something that the state actually has some pretty good oversight on now. Probably learned from the San Francisco example. I'm just going to take a couple more comments, and we're actually at time. Yeah, go ahead.
My concern with the housing is I live in the city's designated low-income district, and those of us north of the freeway are very concerned that everything like this gets pushed into our neighborhood. It needs to be throughout the city. You keep hearing me say that.
Fair and equitable distribution. Okay.
It is the
absolutely
law not to have little pockets north of the freeway.
You know, I'm coming for you, Jerry. Jerry keeps alluding to the low-income side of town. What she is referencing is that in her particular neighborhood, that is what is eligible for community development block grant funding. So I just want to clarify that nobody says it's low-income area, and not as we would think low-income and talking about housing like Section 8 housing. Jerry lives in a fantastic neighborhood. It's just eligible for CDBG projects, so
Okay, great. What about the school on work committee? Housing's gonna go there.
School on work committee, you said? Housing is gonna go on?
You're talking about Covina Valley?
The one right by the freeway.
The Vincent School. The housing project actually fell through.
So is it gonna be a car dealership again?
I have no idea at this point.
All right, any closing thoughts? A couple more minutes here. I think we heard a lot of, you guys are actually pretty progressive for a community. You're willing to do a lot, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a lot more discussions to have as this plan is implemented as well. This certainly is not going going to be the last time you're going to hear about it, and your feedback was incredibly valuable. And I'm impressed with the amount of stuff you guys are willing to do as a community.
I think our community is very conservative. We want to help. We want to extend our, our help to those in need. That's not the problem. Everybody has a good heart in this community. It's just that we are facing a situation where a lot of those folks sometimes they just are passing through probably, and they're not going to stay here. And while they're here, we need to deal with the situation, and that's where we want to, that's why we're here. We want to be able to help. We want to deal with the situation, but we want to do it in a way that it's just not going to take us 10 years to accomplish. We want to do it now.
For those of you who are looking for resources, I did just want to make sure I gave out our specific website address. It's www.westcovina.org/hope, standing for the HOPE team. So if anybody has any questions or wants further information regarding resident tips or business tips, that's where you can find it.
Okay. All right, 2 more comments. I saw a couple hands over here.
Just out of curiosity, what level of funding are we expecting from the Measure 8 grant we're applying for, or potentially applying for?
So it's not technically a grant situation, so they have a planning grant right now to develop the plan. Depending on the strategies that leadership, your city leadership and all the stakeholders want to adopt in the plan, that will then define which kind of funding you go after for Measure H.
Do we have like a ballpark of tiers of some sort, or?
We have the first 3 years of money programmed for it into certain strategies, but again, it's going to depend. I mean, there's the city, so again, if the city chooses to build new units and designate some of those for supportive housing for formerly homeless folks, the county, then a lot of dollars would flow into that particular individual through the homelessness initiative. It's placed in that unit, so that would be a partnership, but that would depend on how many units the city, kind of was able to develop, and of course that takes a really long time. But then there's also rapid rehousing dollars, which the city's actually already engaged with the county on to designate existing units to get people short-term housing subsidies. So that's money that actually is pretty readily available to cities. There's a couple other ones I could rattle off, but really it's tough to tell until you decide what the strategies are. Is my point. Yeah. So you're going to be our last comment for the night.
I always like being the last one to get the last word in. Good evening, my name is Chris Freeland, I'm your city manager. On behalf of the city council and the city staff, we're just very happy to have such a great turnout for the community for this. I do want to address a few comments regarding some of the housing programs the city provides. So for example, you're familiar with a couple of senior housing projects we have here in town, the senior villas. There's 1 and 2 that are on Workman Avenue. The city also oversees 420 affordable units here in town that we got those covenants on. For those of you who are familiar, there's the Promenade Apartments over there on Sunset and Garvey Avenue North. The City Council just renewed some financing for them to ensure that those units be available and be affordable for the next 75 years. All right, so those folks are actually remodeling those apartments to bring in solar energy, upgrade those apartments, but they're also maintaining the affordability of those units. In addition, we partner with the Baldwin Park Housing Authority to provide Section 8 vouchers here in the community. So those folks who can't afford homes can contact the county and get Section 8 vouchers, which helps reduce their rents so they can still live locally at the variety of different apartment complexes, both here in West Covina and surrounding cities that offer those programs. So there's a lot that are happening behind the scenes that many folks don't realize. And I know Nicole mentioned the housing project over on Workman and Vincent. Last week they were to have a community meeting to talk about that project, and unfortunately it fell through. We did have a conversation with the home builder to see if there's still an interest to do that project. It's not an affordable complex, mind you. It is for regular prices, but they are considering, they're looking at the school district who owns the property to do some additional negotiations. So that may or may not come back. So there's other opportunities for other infill home projects that the city is working on. The difficulty is the affordability of those units.
Why did it fall through?
That's a discussion between the school district and the housing builder. I think it's based on their timelines and that. But we were working with them to try and do what we can on our end to try and provide housing opportunities. And we do know there's a couple other housing developers looking into West Covina. The challenge is we look at affordability based on when they acquire this property. You're lucky you can get a house for, under $500,000 in West Covina anymore. So, to say that a house is affordable for folks here in West Covina is very, very difficult.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you again, everyone, for coming tonight. I think if you have any follow-up questions, what would be just West Covina?
Yeah,
.gov.
any follow-up questions, just westcovina.org, and you can contact me directly in the city manager's office at 626-939-8401 if you have any further questions. So thank you so much for coming tonight, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Ian.
Yes.